no one believed I could do it. I'm gonna quit my job, go full-time as an athlete. That's one problem because we don't have proper infrastructures. Me being a kid from South of India who had never done so much of extreme sport, I didn't know much.
The Summer Olympics gets way more attention.
I just didn't listen to what people actually said.
What did it feel like, standing on the street and you're wearing an Indian jersey, you're representing your country?
Indians are not far behind in terms of talent. And I forgot who Bhavani was.
Hello and welcome to Her Side, a woman-led podcast by athletes in for athletes, where we bring you stories about women athletes in India. Stories that are raw, uncensored and unfiltered. Today we have a very special guest on the podcast. Her name is Bhavani Tekada. She's a cross-country skier, a mountaineer, and India's quiet disruptor of winter sports. Born in Cork, but made her way all the way up to the World Cup in Europe on the icy slopes. We have Bhavani here today. Thank you for being here. Her story is not about medals. It's about making her place in a world of unknown and making it known to all of us here. So Bhavani, you grew up in Kodagu and you chose a sport that is a bit known like up in the Himalayas, like, winter regions, or like areas with snow, but take us back to that journey. Like, how did it happen? Coming all the way from Kodagu, choosing a winter sport, and making it all the way at an international stage and leaving your mark. Like, where did it all start, and how were you introduced to the sport in the first place?
Long story, but I'll cut it short. It happened back in 2013. Till then, I didn't even know what the sport and still I didn't know anything about, to be honest, mountains at all. In 2014, I joined NCC organization as an NCC cadet. So through NCC, I was introduced to mountaineering. But I decided to come for that mountaineering camp only because I had watched Age of One movie. And then I was like, one day when I please work or in future, I will go to Manali is what my plan was. But I think God has a different plan. So NCC came into my life, and through NCC, I got a chance to come for a camp in Manali. I was given a choice actually between Manali and Uttarakhand, where it's an Indian institute, very renowned mountaineering institute. But back then I didn't know anything about mountaineering. So the moment they gave me the option, I said Manali because I knew Manali from the movie. Then I said I will go for this camp. And then they got me here all the way with like my Tuta Hindi at that point. Because being from South, obviously I didn't know much about it. And I was just told, same thing, movie mein jaise karte hain, wo log waise hi karna hai. So I was very happy. I came here, my sir dropped me here, and then he was about to leave the next day. And I was asked, do you know what you've signed up for in the mountaineering camp? The first camp I was doing in Manali. And I said, how ma'am, I know it, I've seen this movie, I've seen how they walk up to the mountains. And I have been told that I will do the same thing over here. And they were make fun of me. Because I was this very tiny little girl who had no idea what she had signed up for, because it's not exactly what it looks in the movie, it's the opposite and stuff. Because they made fun of me, and back then I was kind of a girl who was not that wisdom, little bit shy, a little bit into it, but still ready to try something. But I also had that fear because of language. So I went up to my sir and said, "Ki sir, mere se nahi hoga. तो कल सुबह आप जब वापस जा रहे हो तो आई एम ऑल्सो कमिंग बैक विथ यू टू कर्नाटक." He said, "Okay, ठीक है, सुबह बात कर लेंगे. Now we go and see." By that morning, he had already left. Just sending a message to me on my WhatsApp saying that don't let people decide what you can do. They have just seen you for a few hours, so how can they tell you what you are capable of doing? And now I had no option because as an NCC kid, I'm not supposed to travel alone. So until he comes to take me back home, I'm stuck there. So I went into the camp and I did it. So that's how I encountered the adventure, the mountains, the snow mountains started in 2014. Did a couple of expeditions through NCC, did expeditions on my own and did mountaineering courses, finished everything. Joined as a mountaineering instructor with Himalayan Mountaineering Institute in Darjeeling. There I ended up watching a movie called Eddie the Eagle. It's an autobiography of a ski jumper from the British. That movie I had tried skiing once in those years as a tourist, like in Manali, where I'd been. But obviously, skiing is a sport, like, mountaineering is something which people can eventually pick up, but skiing is like a very technical sport. So everyone said, ki skiing to bachpan se seekhna padega and all this. So I never thought of it. I just clicked some photo with the skis and I was done. But then when I watched this movie, I'm like, why not try skiing? Like, I do mountaineering. So if I learn even basic level of skiing, I can ski down to the mountains and try. That was in my mind,
Yeah.
And Mountaineering Institute closes in winter. And I was preparing to join the army. So
Yeah.
I was just preparing for exams and stuff. So I'm like, I have a lot of time. So what else to do? Let me just learn it. Give it a try.
Yeah.
That's how I registered myself to the Gym Institute in Kashmir. Went and did my ski course in 2018. Which is also a year when 2018 Winter Olympic was happening, and we had two of our Indian athletes who were representing India in that Olympics. So I started watching the Winter Olympic for the first time when I was doing my ski course in Kashmir. And there was this lady called Lindsey Vonn who has broken all records at this age. Like, she came back after 6 years after her retirement. She comes back this year, just last week. She broke all the record and won a gold medal at the age of 41 after
I read about this.
Yeah, so she was one of my favorite athletes when I started skiing.
Yeah.
And I was watching her Olympic journey at that point, and obviously the Indian athlete who were representing. So I encountered cross country for the first time at that point.
Yeah.
There was this lady whose news I popping up called Marit Bjørgen from Norway. She's known as one of the most decorated cross country skier in the history with 50 Olympic medals. So that one single edition in 2018, she won 5 Olympic medals. And when she won the 4, and then the last one, the media people were covering her story and telling that if she wins one more, she'll become the most decorated skier. And the shocking part was she was 38 years old at that point.
Wow.
She had just come back from her maternity leave, and she was breaking all the records.
Wow.
So that kind of fascinated me, and that's how I came across cross-country skiing for the first time, because I was doing alpine skiing at that point in India. I started following her on Instagram. Then I started watching the army guys do cross-country skiing in India. So I really wanted to try it. Then you don't get any access to the cross-country skis in rental shops or anything, as you do for alpine and snowboard in India. So I didn't get a chance. So I just continued with alpine. Completed all my alpine course, went to New Zealand, got more training, came back to India. I was trying to work as a ski instructor in some foreign countries, but ended up working for the same institute where I did my course, and I was working as a ski instructor on a temporary basis. While I was working there, one day I was called by this Colonel I.S. Thapa, was a principal back then at the Gym Institute, where I did my course. I joined there again as an instructor. He calls me to the office and says, Bhavani, how is your endurance? I say, good sir, I've been doing mountaineering and everything, so it's good. He said, okay, fine, do one thing, keep your alpine skis aside. I'm going to get a pair of skis for you from the military people or some other institute, because you don't get it privately. I'm going to get a pair for you, and why don't you try cross country? And I always wanted to, so I said, हाँ sir, yes, I will do it. And then he goes that, 15 दिन में national से ready हो जाओ.
Okay.
So I forgot he was an officer, and I was like, I was in my mind like, are you crazy? Like, how do you expect me to learn a new sport completely and go into a national level competition, not just like some local event, He said, he and even other instructors were like supporting me, and then they was just like, what's gonna happen? You might fall a couple of times, then you might come last. Worst outcome, you may not finish the race.
Yeah.
But there's nobody from south of India who all been in the winter sports, only been the military or the people from the Himalayan regions. So it's like, you have nothing to do, just give it a try when you're winning the opportunity. Why don't you represent Karnataka? You mean, of course. So that's how my journey in 2020 started to
Wow.
keep.
Wow. Okay, so lot of lot of ups and downs and confused thoughts, but I think it's so journey so far has become really clear now, and it looks promising as well, with all the attention that winter sports is getting. But I want to put out, like, I've not had a lot of experience in winter sports or hearing. In fact, the first winter sports athletes that I'm interacting with in India, I have met people abroad. It's not a popular thing in India. For the Indian audience, can you explain what winter sports is? What are the different events? And within skiing, there are different, I think, specializations. So just break it down simply for the people watching?
So in India right now, we have in winter sports we have ice hockey. Tournaments are doing amazing. You might have seen that. And then we have ice skating. In ice skating, we haven't really driven, so I'm not very sure with the formats of that. But we have really good ice skating athletes from India. And then we have skiing. So in skiing, we have 3 different categories. One is alpine skiing, it's a downhill skiing. And then we have snowboard, it's also downhill format of competitions. And then we have cross country. So cross country is basically marathon. One skis, but you have skis on, and then you ski for 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers. The Olympic, it goes up to 50. But in general, you have races up to 20 kilometers as well. So it's basically a marathon on skis. But yeah, these are the 3 formats we have in ski and snowboard India, like kind of that federation. And now recently, since this Winter Olympic, from 2026, we have a new sport called ski-o. It's called ski mountaineering, where you skin up. There's a way of putting some skins under your skis. So you walk up to the mountains with your skins on, and then you ski down like your alpine ski. So these are the different kinds of events. And we also have an event called biathlon, which combines 2 events, which is shooting and skiing together. Cross-country skiing and shooting.
Wow.
So you carry a gun on your back, which is a point to carry off. And then you ski for 10 kilometers. And then you have a shooting range in between. There to stop, take off your gun and shoot with bullets, and then get back. And then, they have different kinds of, sometimes penalty, sometimes no, sometimes they just add fines for every event. So these are the different kinds of winter sports you have in India right now.
It's quite a broad spectrum, and it's a full-fledged, event like the Summer Olympics. But Summer Olympics gets way more attention. Does the Winter Olympic happen every 2 years after the Summer Olympics?
Yes. The same thing. I mean, how summer happens once in 4 years, it happened the same way. But then between summer and winter, we have a 2 year of gap. 2 year of gap. This year, 26, the Winter Olympics will happen. Then in 2 years, then we have the Summer Olympics in 28.
That's right. So, what does the season usually look like in winter sports, like in India, especially, and like for Indian athletes? What does the season around the year looks like?
I mean, to be honest, the global warming is very true. It's really affecting, because earlier days, I think we should have a longer winter season. It starts basically from December to April. But now, in the past couple of years, we have seen very less snow. So the winter is pretty much starting between January to March max, not more than that. So that's one problem, because we don't have proper infrastructure. So it's kind of like we don't have much of facilities to retain snow like how Europeans do. It preserves snow from one year to the other year, which we are not there yet. So the winter season for Indian athletes is pretty short. So we get a very short span of time to actually train in India.
So how, as a winter athlete, do you sustain yourself when it's like, only 3 months, like your season out of 12 months is cut down to 3 months? So what do the rest of the months look like? Like, what do you do to sustain yourself as an athlete that you're in the sport and you're still practicing?
So one good thing is, because I'm a cross-country athlete, so it's more of not just technique, it's also about endurance. So my whole summer looks of a lot of training. Actually, me being a kid from South of India who had never done so much of extreme sport, I didn't know much. I didn't know how to swim, I didn't know how to cycle until I was 2 years back. When I moved abroad for my training, I saw how cross workout helps the cross-country skiers. I think cross-country skiers and biathlon skiers, because we almost have the same training schedule, are the ones who do almost every single sport. Like cross-country skiing's training in summer looks like long-distance cycling, long-distance trail running, kayaking, swimming. So basically, cross-country athletes will do every kinds of training. So now I've learned everything. Now I've learned how to swim, now I've learned how to do kayaking, now how to cycle, because the sports requires for me to do all of it somehow. So
you started the sport quite late, as some would say. As you mentioned, the shelf life of cross-country skier is much longer than other sports. But I kind of want to know that did you ever question or doubt yourself that you were too late into the sport, and what does it mean being too late, and does it even affect you?
See, I'll be very honest. Like when I started skiing in 2020, when I got the opportunity, I started for fun. I just was like, I'm getting a chance to do this sport. Why not try it? I never thought of competing. I never thought of being a professional athlete. It just happened for me, I just kept. When I won my first medal in 2020, we have a few athletes. So I just did in 2020 for the first time. And 21, because I had lockdown, I had nothing else to do. So I started reading about winter sports and cross country. I came back next year to compete only to see how far I can go as a person, not as a professional athlete. But then it eventually ended up being in that way for me. I think for me it got easier because yes, I did hear people tell me, one, I'm a South Indian. Didn't expect a South Indian to excel in the winter sport. Two, I was already 25 plus when I started competing when I was 26. People were like normally telling me I should get married and get settled, and I kind of was like not convinced by that concept because I think when I was growing up also PT Usha ma'am was one of my favorite athletes when I was a kid because she was from Kerala. I have even made projects in schools about her. And then I grew up, Medicom was one of my favorite athletes. And then obviously Mary Bjorken came into my life. Her journey was more inspiring for me at that point as a skiing athlete. So I just didn't want to give up and make those people, I wouldn't say I want to prove them wrong. I just want to push myself and not let what others want me to do as my life. So I kept going and I think I just didn't listen to what people actually said. What they wanted me to do is not something which I wanted to do. So I just listened to what my heart said for me and I kept going, and very lucky to have parents who believed in me when they have never seen snow in their life till date.
Yeah, and just adding on to what you just mentioned, that people kept saying that it's too late, you should get settled, get married, and you fast forward it to you playing your first international. So what did it feel like, standing on the slope and knowing that you're wearing an Indian jersey, or you're representing your country, and it's a very big achievement in an athlete's life, especially when you're told you shouldn't do this, it's high for you, you're too late, and nobody believed in a vision or a goal or a dream that you could see. So what was that entire experience like, or feeling that you're standing there in the snow and it's all come, it's all dead and you're going?
I mean, to be honest, my first couple of weeks I didn't realize much because back then I didn't have my Indian kit or anything. I was just wearing some normal, kids I brought from shop, and I was traveling all by myself. But I was doing, so I kind of felt like I'm still figuring out things. But I think it really hit me when I first got qualified to my first World Championship in 2023, when I actually put on my Indian jersey and stood there with the Indian flag in my hand. I was the only athlete representative that year to the cross country World Championship, and they were like, okay, you have to hold the flag and walking the opening ceremony. I just couldn't believe it's really happening in my life, but I'm actually representing India. I think I was still pinching myself, very honestly, when I walked that ramp with the Indian flag in my hand. I was still thinking, am I dreaming? Am I really representing India? And to be honest, I think that's a feeling even I had till now. No matter how many races I have completed or how many more races I will do, I think I will still feel that kind of proud, anxiety, happiness, and all kind of emotions right before every single race. That's something it should never go for me, no matter how old I get.
So you mentioned a little bit about your parents, and I think the support system that you have, apart from the sponsors and all, family and friends are your closest, supporters. Tell us a little bit more about your family and how they took on, your journey, they were part of the experience and the journey. So what was it like with your family and, them supporting you?
Very honestly, I think my parents are very typical South Asian parents who always said study well, and when I grew up. But then when I started doing all this mountaineering and stuff, they never stopped me. My parents were always supporting me when I joined NCC. I started doing NCC camp, I did the Republic Day parade, then I got into mountaineering, and then after mountaineering I did alpine skiing. Then I go back and told her, now I'm not doing alpine, I'm going to do cross country. So they thought that she's just doing it because I was preparing for the military, right? So I'm just doing it to add on my skills to get better and stuff. But that's just But I think when I started cross country, is then they kind of started realizing that first they said this girl has gone crazy. She comes up with this new adventure every year. She's like a fever, you get some fever, then it goes down eventually kind of thing. So when I had training for cross country in the lockdown, because that was the first time I stayed with my parents for too long during lockdown. So my parents said, okay, some new fever has come. It'll go eventually. So then they realized that I was not giving up. I was training even when it was raining. I was going for my runs in the morning and stuff. So I still remember my mom telling me one day, how many kilometers do you run now? I'm like, Mama, I run 5 to 8 kilometers I'm doing every day. How much do you run earlier? Like, couple of weeks back when you started us. And the same distance, why when I come to 8 and like 10 eventually. Her mom said, no, you're telling me that because earlier you speak so much Thailand now. You come back fast. She thought I was cheating in my training, but I was not actually doing training. So what they did was my dad picked me up dropped me around 10 kilometers away from my home because, in Coorg it was a very intimate place, so we didn't have much of COVID problems or restrictions like city. So my dad has dropped me 10 kilometers from home. I didn't have any smartwatch or anything at that point. And my dad calls my mom and tells her her time starts now. And I had to run back home and my mom notes down the timing. How much time did I take? Wow. So that's how they kind of became a part of my training.
Yeah.
And then I come back next year, I compete in the nationals. Like that's when I won my first gold medal in the national level event and eventually got into the Indian team. But till today, they've never seen snow in their life. And every time I tell my mom, Mama, come watch me compete here in Kashmir and stuff. My dad goes like, okay, if we come there, this was how much the ticket cost, this is how much you need. No expenses we need. In this money, you can buy a pair of skis. That's how they are. And I'm very happy that they understood my passion. They never stopped me. I still remember in 2021 when I won the gold and got into the Indian team, registered as an Indian athlete. I took 1 month to even think about it before I spoke to my parents. I made my mom and dad sit and I told them that, you know what, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go full time as an athlete and I'll try and see if I can make it to the world stage, world championship, world Olympic eventually. And my dad was like, do you think you can qualify to the Olympic? Was his first question. So sweet. I don't know. I really don't know. But I would actually give it a try. I don't want to have regret in my life and I didn't try. It might take some years. It might take longer than I expect. It might take 4 years or maybe 8 years. But I would still like to push and see how I can go about it. And I kind of believe I can do it, is what I told my parents. And then my mom and I said, okay, fine. If this is what makes you happy and this is what you want to do, then go ahead with it. And after they said yes, and then I said, I have one more thing to tell you. That is, this would cost a lot of money. So I will need financial support because obviously the federation doesn't support you much for your basic training and stuff. So I said, maybe in future I will be able to get some sponsors, but until then I need some support from you guys.
Yeah.
So my dad said, see, we are not a multi-millionaire family. Yeah. Whatever we have is for you guys. So for however long I can financially support you, I will do it.
Wow. That's
When I decided to go full into it. And until date, they're very proud. They're always there supporting me. And my biggest supporter is my sister, who's also like the person who scolds me the most. Whenever I feel like giving up on the sport, or like, there are times when it gets hard and I cannot feel like maybe I should stop now. She's the one who doesn't let me do that. Now, is she your elder sister, younger sister?
So, how old were you when you quit your job, when you told your parents I'm going full time in this?
27.
Wow. Do you even think of that, like, if you just tell this to anyone, they'll think, oh, she's gone crazy now, it's too late. But you have gone against the odds and that's like, amazing.
I think all the thanks to these amazing women who were role models for me when I grew up.
And I think in the future, you want to look back at these memories and you want to cherish them. Like, if I wouldn't have, then what? And now you're like, now because I did, this is what I am. So, no, yeah, for sure. And you described how supportive your family has been, but outside of it, just being a woman and wanting to do a sport, and for winter sport, there are a lot of challenges and struggles that come with that. So if you could just walk us through what your challenges have been in the sport, being a woman athlete, wanting to do cross-country skiing, or just choosing winter sport in general. What were the struggles like and how did you come over all of it?
The main thing was that because I was from south of India, it was kind of hard for me to figure out a way here because no one believed I could do it, And every person I met in the initial days of my skiing was like, sort of theek hai, like just participate kind of a vision is what they had about me. And for me to stay away, because I think since last 4 years, I've been away from home almost the whole year. Because what happened was when I had cross country, the athlete who used to do cross country skiing in India were all from the military, like from Army, IT, Navy. Now we have CRPF and BSF team and all these things. Or from the people who are from the Himalayan regions, who have been skiing since they were kids. So for me, it was completely new. I was coming new into this cohort who had never done any of these kind of things, or not be much of a sports person as a kid, like not doing any professional sports as a kid. So it was really hard for me, because one thing I realized that if I had to compete against these people, even within India, I had to do 10 times more work than the others are doing. So I tried shifting, like going and staying in Ladakh. I have stayed in Ladakh doing like some freelancing job to manage my expenses, and then go and train with the Ladakh. They were like this local marathon team, so I tried on with them, do training at high altitude, because all the other athletes who are always competing were like training in Gulmarg, like in Kashmir or in Oli, just an altitude area. So if I have to compete with them and win the medal, then I have to train better than them in the same regions.
Yeah.
So I had training in Ladakh, staying away from home, doing everything by myself. I think that was really hard, like, where I felt like I was in a military job, but I can come home only once a year, most of the time I'm just up in the mountains, trying to figure out, I should train, at the same time trying to figure out how to manage my finance. But it was not easy to manage my finance in the initial days, and I didn't have any sponsors or any support. So I think that was the hardest part. And obviously being a woman, it was kind of hard in some places where people kept judging you for like, I mean, people over here have been doing this since they were kids, and what are you going to achieve at this point now? Why are you just wasting your time, money, resources, and everything? To not have that kind of a support. I mean, obviously, I had some amazing people in my life who kind of really believed in me, but also most in general people I meet who didn't believe in my dreams. To fight that thoughts every single day was the hardest part for me.
I'm just curious to know if your family, because your family was there, they were supporting you, and coming from Kodugu was like, were like people questioning your family, like, why you letting your daughter go and be in winter sport, or letting her take up a sport that is not so much.
Not just winter sports, even when I had mountaineering, once people have questioned. I think when I climbed mountain, there was some news article which came out in the paper, and my dad once had gone out to a band or something, and people are reading this article. And my dad kind of felt feeling proud when they were reading it. And then the next communication starts was like, because I was the only girl in that exhibition, and just all were men. But then they were like, ladka ho gayi na, utha ke पहुंचा दिया उन्हें ऊपर.
Oh God.
Because the moments they were having, because the men were there with me, I was able to submit the mountains is what the conversation was. And then my dad just stood there and he was listening, and they didn't know it was my dad, obviously. And that day I think my dad kind of felt really bad, and he came back home and he's like, no point. From next time, just don't give any of these interviews and stuff. Nobody values it. Just do what you want to do, but don't bother to go for these interviews and stuff, because people,
You do good, you do bad, people are going to talk shit. So that day it was kind of hard for me to get that thought out of my dad's head for a while. But I think now they've got used to it. Wherever they go, they hear good things. They also hear bad things. They also get questioned a lot, saying that why are you letting her do this at this age? She need to settle down and stuff. But I think now my parents have got used to the questions, and they have pretty good answers now.
That's nice. Well, all what you said made a lot of sense, and it sounds like a story that required a lot of self-belief and a lot of belief from others in you.
Yes.
But there's also system. I think sport is very systemic. It starts from the grassroots level, and then there's different organizations, microsystems, and then building up a macro system and creating that ecosystem of sports. We always talk about summer sports. Ecosystem there. Yes, it's pretty decent. Not the best in India apart from cricket. But let's talk about winter sports. The ecosystem there. What is the lack of infrastructure, or the difficulties that a skier or any winter sport athlete would be facing? You mentioned something about the snow, snow preservation. So talk us through the system, and what are the challenges within the system that need to be improved right now?
See, infrastructure-wise, we're just nowhere in winter sports, okay? I think athletes of winter sports are still figuring out how they can manage their training because we have no infrastructure in India. And is it possible to do the infrastructure in India? Yes, definitely. Because I think we have the beautiful Himalayan mountain range, which can be a wonderful place to develop winter sports in a very good level.
So I met this girl, she tried running with me and kind of like, I went like, oh my god, imagine if, and I was talking to that kid and she said she doesn't go, I was like, I'm not getting able to go to school, and she said she's not going to go to school because her brother goes to school and she just stays at home, you know. And I kind of was thinking like, imagine this girl child gets a chance to play a sport, and then one day she might become the one who can get the sports medal for India or something. And I really wish I had kind of known her or known her location or something, because I didn't know till after I left and she went back home. But that's when it kind of gave me a thought that Indians are not far behind in terms of talent. It's just that we don't have the right infrastructure. Like athletes, we are like really struggling, especially in winter sports. We are like waiting for the snow to come. Like right now, imagine like no, none of us can ski in India because we don't have snow anywhere where we can ski because the infrastructure is not set up in that way. Now, when the winter comes also, the same track when I'm skiing, we have tourists walking in. You know, like in Europe, it doesn't have this separate area where the athletes train and this separate area where the tourists will play with the snow. So here what is happening, I'm coming down with full speed and then you have some tourists just walking by. So either you have to brake or the tourists don't want to stop from passing your track. So I think, and it's not impossible for the government to do it. The government can just take some action and then be like, okay, this is cross-country track. Or this is the alpine slopes. So this is only for the athletes. If you don't have your skis, you cannot walk into this track. Just make it very clear and make some path. There's such a wide range of mountain range we have. They just make an area. Okay, this is for the people to come have fun, make snowman or whatever you want to. But this is a cross-country track, and if you don't have a cross-country skis on, you don't enter this track. As simple as that. And if they start doing that, I think the snow condition will sustain for a longer duration for athletes to train. Because now you are just like having people walking in, people doing cycling, taking up snow, because they feel that when the tracks are made, it's a firm snow, right? Not a soft snow. So it's easy for them to walk on it. So people are using the same track where we are training. So I think these are the things which government can implement. And yes, government has taken a good initiative with the Khelo India Winter Games. It has given some light to the winter sports athlete after it came into action. But I think if we little bit, it is something up. India has taken an initiative to build a resort, sports resort in Gulmarg now, which might take some years, but I think changes are coming up and winter sports is developing in a very, very fast pace. Like I think the institutes in India are now struggling to accommodate people who are wanting to learn skiing, but they don't have space to teach them or accommodate them in the accommodation. I get a lot of messages from a lot of people saying that how I can get into it and stuff. And I think now if the government or even the company starts coming up to support with the athlete, it can change. It's not impossible for India to change. It can be changed.
I think you're also leading the way, with your story being in the limelight now. I think change happens when we start hearing about these things. So it's a step in the right way. So, you've spoken about the struggles that come with it, the logistical issues, how there's like a lack in the system, and we're still behind when we talk about winter sports, and just like with the facilities and resources that we have. With all of that come a lot of mental challenges as well. So, just highlight a bit on the kind of mental struggles you had to face along with your journey, and what did you been able to do, how I remember before you're shooting you mentioned that you have a sports psychologist as well, and how you you work with a sports psychologist, and just the importance of focusing on the mental side of it as well, and it's not fully possible to make it big in sport if you do not focus on the mental side of it as well. And if you could just elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, 100%. I think I actually forgot to mention we have a sport called luge. We have an Indian who has gone to 6 consecutive Olympics back to back since the age of 16. His name is Shiva Krishnan. He has competed in the luge event in Winter Olympics, and amazing was. I think I would say that he's kind of a mentor to me. a couple of years back, I kind of encountered him on social media, dropped him a message saying that, hey, I started this sport and you have been our Olympic, you have been a winter legend in India. It'd be really great if you can kind of guide me through whatever possible way how I can move forward with this. And it was so nice how he got back, and then that's how we connected first. Last year, I kind of went with a very bad social media bullying by some people in the sports industry itself. It was so hard. I couldn't kind of I was this girl very strong and be like, okay, nah, come on, I can do it, kind of a girl. But then there are times where I also break down. There are times where it is really difficult for me to handle the tense. And last season, I would say, last previous season was one of that kind of a situation. And before that, I didn't have anybody. I had only my friends and family who stood by my side and who always supported me. And they were the people who I talked to, and kind of they helped me with overcome hard times. But I think last year was a time I couldn't. No matter I talked to my mom, dad, my sister, my friends, nothing helped me. And I was in the edge of quitting the sport. It was that bad for me, and that's when Shilomeshwar was like, calls me and then he talks to me for like hours, saying that he kind of told how his athlete journey has been for so long, because he has been in the professional field for a very long time. So he spoke to me first, and then now that I was part of Reliance since 2025 Jan, I have been part of Reliance Foundation. So they put me to a sports psychologist, and to be honest, it really helped. I think if I had not taken the help of sports psychologist, I might have quit completely last winter, because there are times when it gets really too much for you to mentally handle it, And I feel it's very important to take care of your mental health, because people don't actually speak about it and they feel shy to ask help from others about mental health. It's nothing wrong. It's like how we treat our body. We have to take care of our mental health, is what I believe. And I was ready to express what I was going through, and I took that help, and it kind of helped me so much. And if today I have gone to the World Cup or win the medal, I think without that help, I would have not achieved this. So I think not just for athletes, for anybody. And anybody, I think it's very important to speak out. Because we humans try to hold everything inside and don't speak up about it. And we feel shy to speak. If I tell I'm going to a sports psychologist, I don't have I have a meeting with my psychologist, people will what's wrong with you? So that's how people treat you. I think we should come out of it and then be open about what we're going through. And it really helps.
And talking about the athlete, a lot of the times the mental load is a lot more than the physical load. And we just focus so much on you have to get muscles, you have to be strong, you have to do this, you have to do that. But not really how you can just calm yourself down when it's easy, get yourself focused. That really makes the difference at the end or in the results as well.
That's the 1%. We keep chasing that 1%. Physically you can push yourself so much, and then you add the mental aspect to it, it changes the whole game. And I think for all of us sitting here, the mental aspect and focusing on the mental aspect of the sport has changed the game. And for me, for you, for Dalima, it's really the thing that people don't talk about, but it is, especially being a woman, it can also be more challenging because there's so many pressures along with just being an athlete.
Exactly.
You have to break those stereotypes, those societal norms, and dealing with those can be really difficult at the same time.
I didn't train how much do I want, but if I break down a bit, it's just going to go down completely there. And I have seen that personally. I would say that last season was a really challenging season. Things have not been easy. Things have been really hard, and I think when I was ready to accept the help. I was ready to speak up about it with people, is when I was able to overcome it. And now I think if something like that happens, I might feel much lighter. I might take it much easier because I have already fought that. My mental stability right now is much better. The way I think or process something like that. If I have a social media bullying right now, it's kind of better way. I can handle it much better than how I handled it last time. So with being an athlete, I think it's very common to have people have some kind of perception about you or want to have certain kind of results from you and stuff. you're already going through so much with like wanting to achieve some level of result. Sometimes it might take longer, sometimes you might achieve it earlier, sometimes it might take a couple more years to, for you to reach that goal. You're already in that pressure, and then you have people judging you for, they don't even know what sacrifice you've done. They don't even know what you have been through. They don't even know how your family and friends have sacrificed so many things to support you. But they just comes up and randomly, like, you win, they will celebrate you. You lose once, they will just tell you you are like useless, kind of thing.
And people really forget like the human behind the athlete. Like they just like so focused on like just seeing the medals and the shine there, but really not focused on like the hard work and like the struggle that comes behind it, especially like the mental struggle. Because what is all of that strength and technique and everything is going to do if you don't even have like that motivation, like first to like get out of the bed in the morning?
I think that's what happened with me last winter. I kind of was so into being a skier, like a skier Bhavani, that I forgot who Bhavani was. I think that was very hard. And then when I took that help from the psychologist, is when I kind of felt that first I'm a Bhavani. I'm a person first, and then I'm a skier. I'm not just a skier. I have a life outside being a skier.
True.
So then I think it was very helpful for me to realize that, and when I kind of realized that, now it's easy for me to see things in a better way in life. I think athletes also get carried away with this image, like especially with this younger generation. You see, very honestly, with all the social media presence everywhere, as they have this thing, you have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. There's so much pressure. They take pressure on themselves also. I also look that. We take pressure so much on ourselves that we kind of forget to live our lives. We forget that we are also a human being out of whatever event we are playing. And me having this sports psychology in my life kind of made me get back to that space where I kind of felt, first I'm a band. I'm going to live my life as a human first, and then I'm going to go on this part as athlete or as a friend or as a daughter, whatever. That's the remaining role which comes eventually. That's not the whole life for me.
One thing with sport is, at the end of the day, you have to have fun.
Exactly.
I want to touch on one point that you mentioned right now, which was about sacrifice. And, you being from the south, being from Cork, going all the way up to the north for training, all the way across the globe for training. What was the sacrifices that you had to make mentally, physically, leaving your family, to get to where you are? Did you miss your family? Did you miss your mom's food? Running, you mentioned about playing with the coffee beans, when you were growing up. Did you miss all of that? What were the sacrifices that were made, and how did you get over those, feeling of, being in this unknown world, in this unknown sport?
To be honest, yes, definitely I missed home so much. Because I hardly could have been at home, every year. I could hardly go for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks in a year. I just spent at home, and most of the time I was just like in the Himalayas or in Kashmir or in Ladakh or traveling abroad for training and competition and stuff. So yes, I definitely missed being home with my family, missed spending time with my mom and dad. Kind of like for any girls, it's really hard, I think, to not be able to be with your mom and dad, spend festivals. I think it's been years since I was never there with my family for any festivals and stuff. But I think at the same time, all the struggles I've been through has kind of made me a better and a stronger person eventually. Like, traveling abroad, obviously I didn't have much of budget earlier. People, when they look out, they're like, oh, she's in that country and, she has money, and this is what people will assume. But my initial days were very hard. I think I have there's something called couchsurfing. It's an app where you can randomly texting to some people and then ask if you can just go and crash into their house. It's basically you don't pay anything. It's like an Airbnb, but you don't pay any money. I have used that in the beginning days because I couldn't afford to book a hotel or book an Airbnb. So I should go and see a family. Obviously, you have to think about your security as well. So I should see if there's any family. Then I should drop them a message saying that can I come and stay at your place this 1-2 days when I'm competing here or training here. I've done that. There are times when I've even just slept in the airports for the whole day, so that I can just save up some money rather than booking a hotel. So initial days have been really, really hard. But I think those days are the days where I met some amazing people also in my life who kind of like changed the way I saw life. Now they have become like family, I would say, from across the world. So I think when your intention is clear, when you are trying to push yourself, doing all the hard work, I think the universe also comes together. That's what I believe. I think
lovely.
Every time I've struggled so much and I was on the edge of giving up and in a position where I thought, okay, this is the end for me. But something miracle happens at that point, then things would get figured out for me. Like I was struggling to not have a place. There was a time when I still remember in Iceland, I got stuck out of an airport. Like they didn't tell me that the airport opens at 6:30 in the morning. I went to the from the international airport. I went to the domestic airport at like night 2:30 or something. And then I still have 3.5, 4 hours until the airport gets opened, and I'm stuck outside the airport at a -17-degree temperature.
Oh my god.
In the beginning, I'm like, come on, I'm a sports person. I can survive for a few hours. I was like that. But after a point, the cold started hitting, and my whole legs and hands, everything froze.
Yeah.
I still remember calling my mom and telling her, I think, Mama, this is my last day. You either come and pick me up like from here, or I don't think I can come back home. I was in that stage, I was like freezing to death. But at that point, I didn't want to continue. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, there are times, like, especially during this World Cup, and when I saw the track, it was such a hard track. Because we don't have that level of training and that level of exposure. When I saw the first track in Ruka in Finland, I'm like, am I doing alpine or am I doing cross country? Because it was so steep. It was like when I'm going up, it looked like it's standing right on my face.
Oh my god.
So there were times when I stood there and asked myself, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, why am I torturing myself? Then when it's finished that race, when it crossed that finish line, the feeling of that fulfillment is so good. And when you have that kids back home sending me a message saying that looking at you, we get inspired. I think that was one of the main reasons, I think, for me to pick up skiing, that I was invited into a school where I was just sharing my mountaineering journey and my skiing journey in the beginning. In the beginning of first 2 years of my skiing, the kids come up to me and say that, you kind of like such a bold, you picked up whatever came your way and you kind of inspire us so much. And that was one reason also for me to pick up skiing. I felt as an athlete, I had a voice to speak up for many others out there. Maybe if I just continued doing my job, earning my salary and living my life, I would have not impacted many people, maybe my friends and family around me. But I felt as an athlete, I had so much better way to make this world one person better, maybe. I mean, obviously, we cannot change the world completely, but at least we can change a bit around us. And that was one reason for me to push myself in through all of this. And when I get these messages from the kids and some people out there saying that, your journey inspires us, or it's kind of like gives us that hope to do something, I think that's what made my journey fulfilled.
That is very it's been very inspiring to listen to your entire story, and I feel like your journey is like a perfect example of it's never too late, and age is just a number. If you want to do something, you can start and pursue it at any age. And on that note, I would like to ask you, for all the young girls watching, and if they're interested in skiing, or if they want to pick up winter sports, what would be your one message or advice to them?
I mean, not just winter sports. I would say anything they want to do in life. Just give it a try. It's okay. Fail 100 times, fail as many times as you want, but keep trying, because you never know, you might end up being really good at it.
That's your entire story.
That's my entire story. I never knew I was good at skiing. I just kept going. So it's okay. It's not going to be sometimes you might try and then you might success in the first time, and sometimes you might fail hundreds of times. All that I would say, that no matter what you pick up in your life, no matter what you want to do in your life, just keep pushing yourself and believe in yourself. Don't let others tell you what you can do.
So, for someone who wants to pursue a winter sport like yours, give us a plan of action so that, I did have guidance, when I wanted to do my sport. A lot of people don't have guidance, and you also didn't at some point. But for someone who really wants to do this, give us a plan of action that they can actually follow.
So in India, we have different mountaineering skiing institute, which offers skiing courses for beginners until the age of 45. You can go and do courses over there. So we have Indian Institute of Mountaineering and Skiing and Mountaineering, which is in Gulmarg, Kashmir. And then we have Jawahar Institute of Mountaineering and Winter Sports, which is also in Pahalgam, Kashmir. And then we have Avimas, Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Mountaineering and Winter Sports, which is in Manali, in Solam, I think. So these are the three institutes which offers official government certified ski courses in India. So people who want to start, just start with the basics can start with those courses. No matter what your age group is, it's still go and do the course over there. But I think if you're starting as a young athlete, you can start with private. There are so many private schools in Kashmir and Gulmarg and all, which offers training for young people in the beginning days. So they can start with that. But for professionally, they have to obviously go for a higher race training, which is completely different from the normal courses which these institute offers. These institute normally offers alpine ice snowboarding. For cross country, as of now, we don't have, but keep waiting, it's coming.
Lovely.
Yeah, so lovely. This is how they can start with the basics access into winter sports here in India.
Yeah. Vani, your story has been amazing. Honestly, it's I just wanted to know more and more, like just sit here and listen to you. You have that voice, to really inspire people, and especially, young girls who would want to pursue what you were pursuing and want to be like you. And as you said, you had certain role models. I think you would be the next role model for the next generation of Indian athletes. So, all the best for you. Tell us what is, on the roadmap for you next. Where are you heading? What are you competing in next?
I mean, I just finished my World Cup last 2 days back. So yeah, I think now I'm going to take a little break and then again we build again for the next coming cycle. We have World Championship and Asian Games coming up. So I hope next time when I go to the Asian Games or something, it's just not me. I'll have a whole team of girls who will be competing. So we are planning on that to build up, and I think I just planned 1 year and 5 months of not thinking much further, but just the World Championship or maybe the season right now. The winter season is going to start in India, so I just focus on that after the break.
So you're traveling up to the hills or back home south?
Now I'm heading back home. Obviously, it's been a month since I've not met my parents, and after that I'll get back to the mountains once we have snow for the winter season. I kind of missed out a little bit on the qualification in the Winter Olympic this time. But I hope the next time in 4 years I will be qualified, or maybe not just me, I'll have a bunch of other athletes who will qualify with me in the coming years.
I mean, congratulations and good luck both, like for being on the World Cup and then, for your future plans. We hope to see you competing in Winter Olympics one day. We'll be cheering on.
I think it's all about doesn't matter what level of competition you face, about how much you enjoy doing what you're doing. And no matter how hard the World Cup was, I think at the finish line I had the best experience in the last 1 month of competing in the different World Cups. I think at the end of it, that's what matters. I believe in that no matter how many medals or how many trophies or how many awards I win, at the end of the day, people will remember for who you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's my philosophy, and I kind of stick to that.
Very that way. Well, thank you for being on here. We'll quickly do a rapid fire round. Just a bunch of questions, but whatever comes to mind. So the first question is, what is the one thing that you pack before a race? The first thing that you pack before a race.
Before a race, chocolate.
And your go-to favorite song before a race?
Right now I have an audio clip which I listen from guys. I have no idea who this person is because he doesn't post his name. So it's an audio clip I listen to from a South Indian Tamil guy. So that has been my go-to audio I listen to before every single race or even before every training.
Nice. One word that describes your skiing journey so far.
Exciting.
Okay, now this is an interesting one that I have for you. Coffee farm mornings or snowy mornings?
Snowy. Yeah.
Snowy mornings. Okay.
I mean, I can pray to God if they can put some snow in food.
Biggest fear on the track.
Not finishing the race.
And an athlete that you would love to have dinner with, Hage.
Jessica Diggin. She's world number 1 right now in cross country skiing and an amazing human being.
Yeah.
And I would love to have dinner with her.
Nice.
One thing that you wish every Indian knew about cross country skiing.
It's really fun. It's not boring.
Your dream destination to train.
That's a hard one. But to be honest, I think Kashmir. Kashmir or Ladakh has an amazing beauty, which no matter how many countries I've traveled, it's just that we lack a little bit of infrastructure. But
Yeah.
Kashmir and Ladakh has the beauty which cannot be compromised.
Yeah.
I mean, I cannot wait every year to get back to the mountains in India. Love wine.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming. It was really amazing having you.
You guys are doing an amazing job by sharing the women's journey, women's story out there to the people, because the more stories get shared and people get to know is when people will start realizing and supporting the next generation of athletes to come. So I'm thankful to be here and thankful to you guys for inviting me, and it has been an amazing chat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is one step of, like we're giving back to the sport that, raised us, and we want to put on more things like this so that we can drive change.
Women's like you all bring change in this world. Like if we are doing this, and this people kind of hear it. Because if people don't know what the women are doing, they'll never know it. And then you guys are doing that, bringing that story out there to the people, and that will reach out well.
You're part of the Foresight community now.
So more to come.
And thank you so much. If you liked today's podcast, please share it with someone who would find this helpful. Subscribe, comment, and leave a like to grow the Foresight community.